Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first in a series of videos going over how to set up your UDM Pro and DumaOS router. This will work with any router, but we're going to be focused on ones that use DumaOS, such as the R1, R2, and R3, or any of the Netgear Nighthawk XR routers with DumaOS. The first thing you need to do is go ahead and plug your modem into your UDM Pro and go through the initial setup of your UDM Pro. If you haven't done that already, do so. I figure most of you have. And then once you're done, we're going to head over to the Applications tab, Network, and then we're going to scroll down to the bottom of the network page here where our settings wheel is. We're going to click into our settings wheel, and we're going to head over to the Internet tab. Once we're on the Internet tab, we're going to head over to our primary WAN connection. We're going to click into that, and then we're going to head down to this Advanced tab, and we're going to switch it from auto to manual. And we're going to head down and we're going to turn off UPnP. And we're going to apply changes. So I've already done that on my network. Make sure to do it on yours. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and take a LAN cable, so a cable from the LAN port on our UDM Pro, choosing one of the 8 ports, and stick it into the back of the WAN port of your DumaOS router. In this case, I'm using a NetDuma R3. Go ahead and boot that router and wait a couple minutes. Once it's booted, you can check your topology page on the UDM Pro and see if it's shown up. As you can see, here is my DumaOS router. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and make a new VLAN profile for this router so it's not connected to our main UDM Pro network. To do that, we're going to head over to Settings, and then we're going to head over to Networks, and we're going to create a new virtual network. And we do that by clicking the New Virtual Network tab. I've already done this for DumaOS, but I'm going to walk you through it anyway. So if you click this tab, it's going to open this menu where we can name our network, and I've already done so, DumaOS. Then we need to head down to the Gateway IP subnet. This is normally checked. We need to uncheck it like I've done here. And then we're going to head over to our host address, which when you're setting this up, you can see is 192.168.2.1. But we actually want to change this to 192.168.10.1. So go ahead and do that. And then right below that, we have our usable host. It's at 254. We need to move the bar down to 6 usable hosts, just like I've done here. Then we need to scroll down a bit, and we need to go from auto to manual and change our VLAN ID to match this integer, this 10, so 10. Once all of that is done, we can go ahead and save this network. So now that it's saved, the next thing we need to do is go ahead and back out, and you'll see that it has 0 IP leases because nothing's connected to it yet. So we need to get our DumaOS router connected to this DumaOS network. And to do that, the next thing we need to do is head over to the ports section of the UDM Pro. Once in the port section, we can see everything connected to all the ports on our UDM Pro. I have my R3, my DumaOS router, connected to port 2. And there it is, port 2, DumaOS. So we're going to give that a click. You can name this port to DumaOS if you so choose, and you don't plan to move the router to any other port. That way you know port 2 on the UDM Pro is DumaOS. But you don't have to do that, and I'm not going to. The next thing we need to do is head over to the VLAN network, and you can see it's on default currently, but we need to move it to what I have it on, which is DumaOS. So you move your port network VLAN ID to DumaOS, and then we're going to go ahead and save. Once you have saved that, you need to reboot your DumaOS router once again. So go ahead and turn it off, wait a couple minutes, turn it back on, and wait a couple minutes. Once it's fully booted, we can head back to the topology page here on the UDM Pro, and we will see that there's my DumaOS router. And if we click on it, you can see the virtual network has changed from default to DumaOS. My VLAN ID is 10. And then we have an IP address, which is now the WAN IP address of my NetDuma R3. We want to copy this, so go ahead and hover over it, copy it. Then we're going to head over to our settings section. Heading into settings and then security, we need to port forward our ports for Xbox. I do not have a PlayStation 5 right now, and when I get one, I'll run through how to do all of that as well. But for now, we're focused on the Xbox. So I've already created my port forward entry, but to do so, you click Create Entry, which will open this box. You can go ahead and name it Xbox, that way you know that it's for your Xbox ports. We want to make sure the port forwarding rule is enabled on our WAN, on any, and then port. This is where to pay close attention. For Xbox Live and 99.99% of Xbox games, it's just going to be 3074. So that's going to be 3074 for pretty much everything out there. And then you would click the Update Forward Port button. However, if you play older Call of Duties on Xbox, a couple of those older Call of Duties use a couple more ports. So for here on the UDM Pro, we're going to put 3074-3076 and use that update button, which will go ahead and put it here in the port section and in your forward port section as such. Now we're going to take that 192.168.10.5 that we copied from our DumaOS IP, and we're going to paste it here. That way, the DumaOS router has these ports open for Xbox Live and Call of Duty. Again, the -3076 isn't necessary unless you're playing older Call of Duties. Once that's all done, you can go ahead and apply these settings. Now we need to head into the NetDuma R3 and make some changes there. So we're going to back out of our UDM Pro. Now for those who don't have two network cards on their computer like I do, this is obviously going to be a bit more difficult. Hey, I was there too. You have to unplug cables. It stinks. That's why I bought a second network card. But anyway, I have my UDM Pro connected to that network card. But if you have two different networks like I now do, I've got my DumaOS network and my UDM Pro network, it's easier to have two network cards. If you don't have two network cards, you're just going to need to unplug the cable from the UDM Pro and plug it in to the R3 so that you can go ahead and do your stuff on the R3. So we're going to disable my UDM Pro because I do have two NICs, and I'm going to enable my NetDuma R3. Once my R3 is enabled, of course, I can go ahead and log into my NetDuma R3 and bring up the main dashboard. Once we're here on the main dashboard of our R3, we have a couple more things to do to make sure that we don't have any NAT issues on our Xbox. And to do that, we need to head down to Settings. Then we need to head over to the UPnP tab and go ahead and disable UPnP. So disable UPnP. And then the next thing we need to do is create a port forward. I've already done this, but this is incredibly easy to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to click the Add Rule tab, and it's going to give us an option to reserve an IP address for the port forwarded rules. This is a good idea. So we're going to click the Find Device, and we're just going to use my Nintendo Switch as an example. So there it is, my Nintendo Switch, and as you can see, it's currently not reserved, but we want to reserve this IP address. So we click that, and it's going to bring this up. Are you sure you want to reserve this address? We're going to click Save. Once we've done that, we now have a reserved IP address for my Nintendo Switch. We're gonna click next, and pretending this is an Xbox, we're gonna name this Xbox. And then we have two different options here, our port or port range. If you're just playing normal Call of Duty games, not the older Call of Duty games, like we did on the UDM Pro, you're just gonna wanna do 3074 for your source and destination port. So 3074, and you want that on TCP and UDP. However, if you're playing the older Call of Duty games, you're gonna want to make that a port range. So to do that, you're gonna click the port range tab, and now you have 3074 to the end port of 3076, matching what you did on the UDM Pro. So 3076, and then we're going to save that. Now, it overlaps with a different rule because I already have an Xbox rule made. Once you have set up your rules here on the R3 and on your UDM Pro, you'll have OpenNat on your Xbox and all Xbox games, which will make things nice and smooth for you. So now that you've set all that up and you got everything put together, you can now hook every device to your NetDuma R3. We're using the UDM Pro for its security and basically as a pass-through. It's passing the internet to the R3 so the R3 can use its SmartBoost technology and ping optimizing technology to optimize all devices in the household. Again, this is one of a few ways that you can set up the UDM Pro and a DumaOS router. I actually really like this way because you get the added security of the UDM Pro, but then all the awesome quality of service features, geofilter features, etc. of a DumaOS router such as the R3. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. And until the next time, as always, take it easy.